Welcome to the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit. I'm Marcy Little, your host, and with me today we have Rachel Grant. Rachel, welcome.
Hey, Marcy. Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. Before I talk more about how wonderful Rachel is and the work that she offers, we'll just take a moment to get present. And for me, that means bringing my foot off the chair and putting it on the floor for starters. I like to begin with just feeling my feet for a second and making some contact with the earth. And feel free to close your eyes if that works for you. You can even move your body around for a moment like seaweed. Just shake anything out or wriggle anything out. Make some audible sounds as you exhale. Shake it out through the fingers. Yeah, and then once again, just notice the sensation of your feet. It's whatever they're touching. And the feeling of your body in contact with the chair, the couch, wherever you're seated. And then maybe a moment to notice your breath and what it's doing. If the chest is rising and falling on the inhale and the exhale. Maybe softening the muscles of the jaw. Ooh. And when you're ready, opening your eyes if they're closed. Take your time. We're right here for you, Rachel and I. And I just want to invite listeners, viewers, participants at any moment to pause the video if you feel yourself getting a little bit overwhelmed or overstimulated and you just want to get up and move your body, pet your dog or your cat, get a tea, walk it out, come back when you're ready. Okay, without further ado, Rachel Grant. Here she is. Rachel Grant is the owner and founder of Rachel Grant Coaching, is a sexual abuse recovery coach, and has an MA in counseling psychology. She is also the author of Beyond Surviving, the Final Stage in Recovery from Sexual Abuse. Based on her educational training, study of neuroscience, and lessons learned from her own journey, she has successfully used the Beyond Surviving program since 2007 to help survivors of childhood sexual abuse who are beyond sick and tired of feeling broken and unfixable break free from the pain of abuse and finally move on with their lives. Woo!
Woo! Hell yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you read the title of today's talk with Rachel, but I'm going to read it because I love it so much. And it's the no BS way to kick PTSD to the curb.
Hey, yeah.
Who can't get excited about that?
Right?
Yeah, I love it, Rachel.
So necessary, right?
So necessary. Absolutely so necessary. So beyond what I just read about you from your bio, is there anything more you want to tell viewers about yourself?
Yeah, I think that, thank you for that wonderful introduction. And, you know, really, I'm coming always in this work just from the place of, through the lens of what I've gone through in my own journey of healing. And really everything that I do in the beyond surviving world, if you will, is first and foremost because I tested it right on myself. And the frameworks that have been developed over the years, really through that lens of me getting into a place in my own journey where I really was feeling like I am just surviving my life. Like I'm not really living. And in many, many ways, from many, many sources, being told, yeah, like, duh, that's what it's going to be like. And maybe like, oh, wait, what? Like, that doesn't sound good. And so I just at one point in my life hit this place of like, there has got to be something more than just surviving. And so that's really where the idea and the framework of Beyond Surviving, you know, was born. And now what 14, 15 years later is the work that I do every day with men and women all over the country, all over the world, really supporting them in that same journey of wanting to move on with their lives.
Yeah, and how wonderful to know the journey of healing so intimately, have found your way to thriving, or
that's it.
You know, and then be able to show other people the path or help them along. Otherwise, it's
Mhm.
like, how can we really help someone if we don't actually know it ourselves in our own bodies?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I find so often that when I'm working with my clients, one of the biggest points of feedback I get is like, oh, it's just so nice to have a place where I don't have to explain everything. Like we
Yes.
can bypass a lot of it, like, let me tell you why, and let me give you all the details, and let me explain it and justify. And like, no, girlfriend or boyfriend, I got it, like, it's cool. I understand. Let's just get straight into like, okay, what are we gonna do about that? So we can really move very easily and fluidly into those spaces of like application and transformation,
Mhm.
because that's really the lens that I work from. I'm really supporting people who maybe have done a lot of healing work, like they've done the therapy, they've read the books, they're very book smart about trauma, uh, but they are noticing like some things have kind of moved and shifted, but yet there's still this feeling of like, not yet. I'm
Mhm.
not fully baked, and my life isn't exactly what I want it to be, or I still struggle with these things. And so being able to come through the lens of coaching, right, as opposed to therapy, has really afforded me the opportunity to work with people more dynamically in the space of intervention, strategy, application, with a little bit of processing. Like it's in there, but it's not our primary focus.
Uh-huh. Right. Different model.
Yeah,
Yeah, got it. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing that.
sure.
Um, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everyone who's in this summit as a speaker, and that is, what made you want to be part of the Healing Sexual Trauma Summit?
Thank you. Well, for me, I think there's one of my mentors, Donna Jensen. One of her little catchphrases is telling is healing. So for me, in the space of having any opportunity or space to talk about my story, to talk about my journey, it's really serving two pieces. It's one part healing me, and then it's one part being a support and resource to other people, which I really love to do, obviously, right? I built my whole world around it. And so just getting into new spaces and places with people where, if something I offer can help flip a switch for someone or make a difference in their journey, like I live for that. That's just like the best thing in the world.
Right. It's like eating your favorite kind of ice cream or something.
Yes. That's
Right.
right.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
All right. Um, so you may have begun to sort of touch on this, but I'm going to ask you this question anyway. And that is, how did you arrive at where you are now to specialize in sexual abuse recovery coaching? Do you want to say more about that?
Sure, I'll say a little bit more about the journey to that place. When I was 10 years old, my grandfather had been living in our household for about 5 years at that point, and he began sexually abusing me. And, at that age, there's no making sense of that, that kind of trauma and the immediate impact that that has. It's so quick, like right away, you're into this world of like, what did I do? I must be bad. All of course, the fear and anxiety now about going home, as opposed to this feeling like a safe, comforting place. The duality of experience that immediately starts to happen, like the night after the very first time he abused me, sitting down at dinner, and my mom like, how was your day, honey, what did you do? And like, I don't know, past more chicken, like I just couldn't even, like, what do I even say? And that immediate separation of self, right? Like I have this part of me that's living this life and having this experience, and then I have this part of me that's like trying to go to school and still be me, and pretending in so many ways. And as the abuse continued and got worse, of course, those internal messages like just got worse and worse. I didn't understand any of this, of course, as 10 years old. I'm just feeling scared and overwhelmed. I'm eating everything I can find, right? Like just doing anything I can to like self-soothe and cope. And then one day my mom happened to catch him in the act, and she snatched me away from him, as only a country mama can do. I'm from Oklahoma. And she checked with me, like, are you okay? What's going on? And then very immediately, she and my dad moved him out of the house. Like it was very quick, overnight, gone. And I always make a point to name that, because honor and props to my mom and pop, because damn, I've been doing this for a while. So I've heard, of course, many, many stories where that doesn't happen. But Marcy, even though the person was out of the house and the abuse had stopped, my internal pain, right, was still there. And my mom and dad tried to get me to go to counseling, but I was like, are you crazy? I am not talking to anyone about this. I would literally run away to the woods and hide so they couldn't find me and take me. And so that really just set up, me for the next many, many years of my life, really from 10 until 18, sitting in and stewing in like all of that trauma. And of course, my life is happening and being impacted by it, but I don't really get it yet. I just know that I get suicidal. I know that I have these rages. I know that I really struggle with relationship, or sex was so confusing. And then at 18, I met someone who really started to help me have a dialogue with myself about this trauma and convinced me, like, maybe some counseling. I might want to think about doing that. So I finally caved and was like, fine, I will go. And I started that process. Like I kind of moved into that place of acknowledging and naming what had happened and getting some support. But ultimately that relationship became abusive too. And I was in that for 10 years. And it was this wild time in my life, Marcy, because on one hand, I'm trying to heal and deal with this like childhood trauma and everything that it made me think and feel about myself. And then I'm in a relationship that's often reiterating what I think and feel about myself that I'm trying to heal. And so it was just maddening and cuckoo. And so it was when I divorced and I was at a new stage in my life. And I just thought, okay, something's got to give here. Something has to shift. And so that's really when I became obsessed, quite honestly, like, how do I actually heal from this shit? And so I just started reading everything I could, did my master's in counseling psychology, and studied neuroscience. And then things like just started falling into place. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, I understand this is like an injury. I've experienced an injury to my brain and to my nervous system. And so let me just think about it through that lens. Like, how do I heal this injury so that I can move on with my life? And then honestly, I was just trying to get myself together. I didn't necessarily really think of it as a curriculum, but around 2007, some ladies in my community were like, hey, do you think you can show us what you're doing? Because we're stuck and we're not moving forward. And so they were my guinea pigs, my very first Beyond survivors. and then I was like, wow, okay, this is actually making a difference for them. And it just, unfolded from there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story, including the heartache of what you went through. And I agree with you. It's like, I first of all acknowledge how impossible it felt to tell anybody what was going on, and how alone and isolating that was. And then to have that response when your mom and your parents found out what was going on is like so stellar. Like, how supportive. And and then yet it's like you're still left with all of this, all the stuff that is there. And and then being led finally and being ready to begin to unpack it a little bit or look at it, and then finding yourself perpetuating it in this marriage. And then it was like, no, this can't be the way.
Exactly that.
It's time to really learn how to live, because this isn't living. So, and then you did, and then these people could see it in you, and they're like, hey, can you help me too? I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful, tragic and beautiful story.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so very curious about the neuroscience and how you developed your book and the program Beyond Surviving. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So when I began, one of the very first books that I came across when I was doing my master's, actually, that started to click some things into place for me was Dan Siegel's book, The Developing Mind. And he also has a newer book called Mindsight. But his framing of like, okay, so here's what's happening on a neurological level when you're experiencing trauma, and how neuronal pathways get formed. So the brain, right, is comprised of all these billions of neurons, and they're actually by definition called electrically excitable cells. Like, I think that's so cuckoo fun. Like, oh, these little neurons are just like running around like, oh my gosh, do you want to hang out with me? Right. And they like, boom, they connect with each other when we have these experiences, and these associations are created. And then the brain basically says, okay, we have that association. This is the data set for that association. So anytime you run into that data in other places in your life, it just causes that same neuronal pathway to light up again. And it can set off a whole string of like feelings, reactions, responses. Right. And so, for example, my grandfather, I would often sit on the front porch swing. And I was super, super cuddly as a kid. And so I was snuggled up close next to him when he first began touching me. And so immediately, like my brain is sensing threat, danger, and it's trying to assess the cause of that threat. Like, where is that coming from? And in my little mind as a 10-year-old, right, it was very, very basic, very, very simple. This is happening because I'm cuddling with him, because I'm close to him. And so that association of cuddly close equals bad, dangerous, becomes locked in as a neuronal pathway. And then 5 years later, as a teenager, when I'm wanting to like cuddle or kiss or be close, there was this internal tension, because one part of me like was all about it. I'm a teenager, right? Hormones are blazing, but my trauma, right, is also sitting there saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Stop this, get away, get away. And so I'm having all this anxiety and panic at the same time that I'm experiencing pleasure or connection. And ultimately I would end up pushing people away.
Yeah.
And so what's also happening then, like, as I had the next experience and the next experience, every time we access a neuronal pathway, it gets reinforced and then also expanded. So new data comes in, it gets more and more entrenched. And so this is why, like, people will often say to me, like, I just like, no matter what I do, I just like keep doing the same thing, or I keep having the same thought. I keep falling right back into the same old pattern. And it's because those neuronal connections and pathways are just so reinforced and so in depth. Okay, so with that information, I was like, okay, so how do I change that? Right? Like, how do I
not enough to know how it works. Right, I need to know how to
right, exactly. Because honestly, that was what was happening for me a lot in therapy. It's like, oh, you have this problem because you had that. Oh, you have this problem because that. Oh, you have this problem. And I was like, great. I'm having all these great insights and awareness, and I get it. But what do I do? How do I actually change it? When I would ask therapists about that, Marcy, they literally would like just either be blank, or they would do the classic, well, what do you think might help you resolve that? Why am I paying you? Right? Ugh, so frustrating. And so again, through like more deeply studying the neuroscience and the nervous system, right, beginning to understand that we can retrain the brain. And so like one kind of no BS approach that we use in Beyond Surviving is just a very simple framework of asking yourself the question, what am I out to prove? Like, what is a belief that I am holding so much that I really like, that's all I can see or experience in my life. Like, I was out to prove that cuddling was dangerous. I looked for it, I proved it. And that's one of the amazing things about the brain, is that ultimately it has a little bit of a negativity bias. And we are constantly, actually daily, teaching the brain what to prioritize and what to pay attention to. And so a simple example, like people experience this all the time. Like, Marcy, have you ever like learned or heard about like a TV show, or maybe you've like bought a new car, and then as soon as you walk out, you're like, oh, I see that car everywhere. Or, oh, now I'm hearing everybody's talking about this TV show. And it's like, wait, did everybody go buy this car today?
Like it didn't exist before, and now all
right, it didn't exist at all, right? But with that awareness and that attention, you become very attuned and you just start to see it everywhere. And so as I started to understand that, I was like, oh, okay, well, what if I run a little experiment? What if I try to shift what my brain is prioritizing, paying attention to, and looking for? And so one of the ways that we do that, one framework that we use in Beyond Surviving is language. You know, one of the things that the Buddhists say that I think is so beautiful is that language is a lever. And we can use this lever as both a way to indicate our character, like to tell people about who we are, but we can also use language as a lever for shifting it. So when my character was entrenched in basically like, leave me alone, don't touch me, right? And I wanted to shift to a place of like affection, attention, connection, then I'm using language first as the first step. So I would get up and I would say, like in the mirror, today I'm out to prove that I'm valuable. And every time I would start laughing at myself, Marcy, like, this is so dumb. This is a waste of time. I don't believe any of this. And it's true. Like, there is more to do when it comes to healing and retraining the brain than just saying some nice things to ourselves. But it starts the framework of shifting the attention. So as I kept doing it day after day, it's kind of like when I bought a new car, a red car. For a while, my brain was confused, like, which car are we looking for? But eventually, as I kept getting up day after day after day, looking for the red car, then my brain just says, yep, red car. That's the thing. That's what's real. That's what's needed. That's what's true. And the brain literally deletes the blue car data. So we can do that with thoughts and ideas about ourselves. And so as I kept saying, today I'm out to prove that I'm valuable, I was basically teaching my brain, like, this is the red car that you need to be looking for now. And I did, like, I started to see like all these little moments in my day and even in my past of like, yep, there's a moment, there's some proof that I'm valuable. I was able to stand up for myself in circumstances and situations where I normally wouldn't have been able to. Because when you're working through the lens of worthless, right, man, or if I'm working through the lens of can't be close, there are only certain experiences I get to have. So that very, very simple, but very, very doable practical strategy really gets at the heart of neurological wiring. And it's just a little simple tool that we can use to begin retraining the brain and getting ourselves heading in a different direction so we can change our experience, change our sense of self, and what we see and what we ultimately cultivate or produce in our lives.
Would you call that neuro-linguistic processing? Or is that something?
Yeah, it's definitely a piece of the puzzle, right? So we're using a couple of different things. We're using language as a way of accessing it. And then we're using kind of mindfulness as an underneath piece, like, can I be aware? And then we're literally using like the power of focus. Like, studies have shown that like what we pay attention to actually creates chemical and physical changes in the brain. And that our expectations have a lot to do with what we actually perceive out in the world or in ourselves. And so it's kind of a combination of these different modalities that all kind of come together to support that particular process.
Yeah, I hear you. So with the mindfulness, we get to see what we're focusing on, and then we interrupt it, and then we offer ourselves something different, and it's like a totally different pathway. And at the beginning, it's sort of like a rocky dirt road. And then, you know, the more we travel there, the rocks come out, and eventually it's like a paved highway.
Totally. Yeah. Like, and it's a new road that we actually want to ride on.
Right. And there's like great scenery here, and it feels good. And
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Love that. All right, cool. All right. Another question. I'll try to read it. I take my glasses off because I want to avoid the glare.
Sure.
Yeah, but you know, and my eyes, they have changed, Things
Oh
change.
yes,
They
honey, I got
change.
the whole, they said to me the other day, you got to get the progressives. I was like, oh God. I was like, oh man, oh, I've just stepped into another level of life. And okay, welcome it, bring
Exactly. Like,
it.
okay, here it is. All right, but I made the font nice and big. So for those who are survivors of abuse, what are some of the first steps they can take towards recovery? Was a question we were going to address.
Yeah, fantastic. So for me, the first and foremost thing that we always have to do is actually figure out where you are in your healing journey. Like that's the most critical step, because there are these kind of like different stages of healing. And what I found in my own journey, and then as I started working more with people who'd experienced sexual trauma, is that like I would get re-traumatized because I would step into like a therapist office and they would immediately ask me to start telling my story of trauma. And there was no framework for like, do I actually have nervous system regulation? Do I actually have tools for like de-triggering or regulating? And so they would take me into like these worlds of like deep like processing without any foundation. And so, you know, in the Beyond Surviving program, that's the very first thing that we have to do. But before we even can get to that level of work, there is some work before that, which is naming. I wouldn't say like deep narration of trauma, but I would say in therapy, which is the great place for that, in that survivor stage, is when you are like acknowledging and naming like what's going on for you. And you are starting to make some of those connections, right? And so really understanding, one of the best first steps you can do is just get a little bit of a sense of this framework and see where you're at. Now you can actually be in more than one stage, right? Like you can be in the victim stage, which is really all about like the denial. I don't want to see it. I don't want to look at it stage. And maybe in one thing or about one area or about a particular experience. And then you can be over here in the Beyond Survivor stage in a whole different space. Like you're really self-resourced and have a lot of capacity. But on the whole, if you have a good sense of like, this is where I'm at, these are the goals that I need, and these are the kinds of support I should be seeking based on that, then you can really help reduce like re-traumatization.
Yeah. Okay. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. I like too how you put it. It's like we can be at different stages in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even revisit different stages at different times.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question, and then we're going to talk about your wonderful gift and what people can help buy and purchase from you and work with you. So I want to ask, what does the last stage of recovery feel like?
Thank you.
Feel
So
like that exhale?
yeah, it feels like that exhale. It's like boring.
It's
life,
what?
life becomes boring.
Ah.
Like I remember a really clear moment in my journey where I was on the couch. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no drama, there's no problem, there's no like rapid fire negative thinking that's happening. I'm just chilling, I'm just here, I'm just present, I'm just being. There's nothing to solve, nothing to fix, nothing to work on. And so, you know, beyond surviving, the idea is when it's like the final stage of recovery is, it's almost like I need a little something after that. Like there's a little in between, because beyond surviving is when you're on the other side of recovery. Recovery is when you're spending all of your time, energy, and money on healing. Got to think about this, got to work on it. And the trauma feels like it's just in the spotlight like all the time. And there are just so many trauma symptoms and there are so many things going on. So beyond surviving is like, okay, once we're past that, it's not like the final stage of life or the final stage of growing or learning things about yourself, but it is the place in which these past traumas are integrated. They no longer hold like all of that charge and negative energy. And instead, you are living in the present. You are living from the place of empowered self, adult self, if you will. And you really have like that strong sense of ownership and responsibility. And you have a lot of resilience and bounce back, because again, you have like that toolkit that, like, when life happens, because it will, that's when life does, right? You just kind of go, okay, I know, here's how I respond to that. Here's how I take care of myself in that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so, like, a very simple example of like what beyond surviving sounds like when the trauma is integrated. It's like, I grew up in Oklahoma. I love peanut butter. I was sexually abused and I love to dance. Like, it's just all in there. The experience is really just woven into the narrative of my life and my story. And it's not like this separate apart thing that I have to really be putting a lot of time or attention on.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It's
Mm.
like you can say all of those things and there's no, like you said, there's no charge there.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just sort of like aspects of your experience and
Mm-hmm.
make you who you are right now in some kind
Yeah.
of way. Yeah.
Exactly that.
Well, Rachel, thank you so
Woo,
much
woo.
for sharing. Yeah, woo, woo. Big
Yeah.
time. Rachel Grant, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Marcy. Thank you so much for having me. It was nice connecting with you today too.
Hey, awesome.